You call me out upon the waters, the great unknown, where feet may fail. And there I find you in the mystery, in ocean's deep, my faith will stand. Grace abounds in deepest waters. Your sovereign hand will be my guide. Where feet may fail and fear surrounds me, you never fail, and you won't start now. I will call your name, keep my eyes on the way, resting in your embrace. I am yours, and you are mine.
Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters, wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters, wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. I will call your name, keep my eyes on the way, resting in your embrace. I am yours, and you are mine. I am yours, and you are mine. The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. More to be desired are they than gold, yea, than much fine gold. Sweeter also than honey, and the honeycomb. The statutes of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. More to be desired are they than gold, yea, than much fine gold. Sweeter also than honey, and the honeycomb. The fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. The judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. More to be desired are they than gold, yea, than much fine gold. So
meditation of my heart be accepted in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. More to be desired are they than gold, yea, than much fine gold, sweeter also than honey, and the honeycomb. And in keeping of them there is great reward, there is great reward. And in keeping of them there is great reward.
My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest frame, but wholly trust in Jesus' name. My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest frame, but wholly trust in Jesus' name. Christ alone, cornerstone, weak made strong in the Savior's love. Through the storm, He is Lord, Lord of all. When darkness seems to hide His face, I rest on His unchanging grace. In every high and stormy gale, my anchor holds within the veil. Christ alone, cornerstone, weak made strong in the Savior's love. Through the storm, He is Lord, Lord of all. When He shall come with trumpet sound, oh, may I then in Him be found, dressed in His righteousness alone, faultless stand before the throne, faultless stand before the throne. Christ alone, cornerstone, weak made strong in the Savior's love. Through the storm, He is Lord, Lord of all. Christ alone, cornerstone, weak made strong in the Savior's love. Through the storm, He is Lord, Lord of all. When I'm down, Lord, you pick me up. Then I fall on my knees. When I'm dry, Lord, you fill my cup. You always give what I need, and yours, Lord, I'll always be.
Good morning and welcome to your Pathway Home. It's Matthew Allen with Kane Atkinson and Jim Gershon. Jim, it's good to have you back.
From the life of COVID with my family. Yeah. It's good to be back. Missed everybody out there, and I'm glad to say that my wife is day by day getting better. But after being married to her for 45 years, I can tell you she was sick. because to get Pam to sit still, she's a doer,
Yeah.
and she was hurting, and so thankful that God blessed her, and she's getting stronger each day, and we're just thankful.
Yeah, and we're really thankful you're back here with us this morning, Mr. Jim.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, it seems like it's been like 6 weeks, maybe Labor Day since you were with us. I'm sure it's been since then, but it's been a while. We're glad you're with us, and glad to have all of you here with us this morning on this good Sunday morning here in Dayton, Ohio. We've had 3 days of monsoonal moisture, swamp, tropical,
Tropical storm.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but anyway, the clouds are parting out there this morning, and the sun's coming up, and it's a great day to come out and worship God. And we want you to do that here at the Cornerstone Church this morning. We meet at 5051 Wilmington Pike here on the southeast side of Dayton. We'd love for you to be a part of it. 9:30 is when things begin here later today for our Bible classes for all ages. And then at 10:45, we'll all gather together here inside the auditorium for a time of worship. And we would just really, really love to see you be a part of that. Guys, we've had an amazing flow of guests throughout the summer leading into the fall, sometimes as many as 50 people from the local community. And that, we're probably averaging 30 a week on that. And it's amazing. And it's such a blessing for us to experience that, get to know people from the local community, Bellbrook, Centerville, Kettering, all over Dayton, and communities even further out from that. To be a part of us. And so if you're looking for a church, we'll hope you'll come give us a try today. I think you'll be blessed by your time with us.
Yep, you're right, Matt. Myself and some of the other guest volunteers sat down, and we actually did crunch the numbers, and we're averaging about 35 every Sunday. And we would love for you to make it 36, or your whole family would make it about 40 this morning. We're so thankful that you're tuning in with us on the live stream. Now, this is your pathway home. It's a live, interactive, spiritual discussion where we all dive into the Scripture together, and we see what we can see there. We also react live to your comments as you comment on the feed. We're reading those. Each of us have our feeds open on Facebook and YouTube. So just feel free to drop a comment. We'll be reading those and reacting to most of those live. If you've got a question or you want to make an interjection, anything like a condemnation, hopefully not, feel free to drop those below. Also, don't forget to hit that share button so that you can extend this conversation to all your friends on Facebook. And just maybe one of those people will click on it and get a part of this gospel conversation we're going to have this morning. We'd love that.
Yeah, and so it's always good to be able to share, and mentioning people coming and visiting us, experiencing God's love through His people, experiencing worship from the heart, and the family of God as God intended it. We're trying to be that, and I just think. It's such a wonderful worship experience when you are with God's family and they're loving and caring and they're uplifting. And if you've not visited with us, we encourage you to do so. Friendly group of people that will love you and love your soul.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we'll talk more about that as the broadcast goes on this morning. And we have a number of people that have already joined in from around the country watching. We appreciate that. And with that, we'd like to spend some time just talking a little bit about our topic as we talk about our success and our spiritual growth and how to measure that and what to do. Last week, Kane and I talked a lot about making a connection to the local church, and that's a good way to gauge how we're doing in making progress. How strong is my connection to the local church family? I think it's in fashion, it's in vogue right now to bash the church. I see all these social media posts about how I've been hurt by the church, and there's hypocrites in the church, and the church is inconsistent, and we could just go on and on and on. We see that all the time, and it's certainly it seems that it's very popular to do that. And I want us as Christians to turn that popular narrative on its head. And we do that by making that connection to people. We make ourselves vulnerable, and we put ourselves out there in the arena and serve others and allow us to be served, and then the community grows. But we've got to make sure that we have a connection. That the local church is vital. It's essential to my growth and progress as God's son or daughter. When I came to Jesus, not only did I receive Him, but I received all of my brothers and sisters, and they have been given to you and to me for our spiritual growth. We work together, and I think of passages, guys, like Ephesians 4:15 and 16, where Paul is talking about the unity of the body. First, he goes back, he talks about how the leadership equips saints for the work of service and for the purpose of growing toward maturity, so that we're no longer tossed to and fro by every wind of doctrine, but that we grow up together with one another in love. And the whole body, every member supplies something. Every member brings something to the body, so that the body itself grows up in love and admonition for the Lord. And that's Ephesians 4:11 through 16. And so I think it's important for us to have that connection, to look at the church from a favorable way, and also understand, as we talk about that, we discussed this a little bit too last week, guys, as far as, guess what the church is made up of? People.
People are messy.
And we often have messy lives, and we're not where we ought to be at all times. And so we have to remember that, because we're looking at everybody else saying, man, there's something going on there. And we forget, well, man, look in the mirror, there's something going on here too. Mm-hmm. And so we're all coming together, we're all looking toward Jesus in order to grow and become more like Him.
Right, and then speaking of the connection aspect, as far as knowing that I'm growing spiritually, a lot of us get kind of jammed in the chamber, and I can tell you that it's definitely going to stunt your spiritual growth if you don't make those connections. We can be baptized and then sit the pew. Just obtaining information about God or hearing really good singing, yeah, I mean, those things are going to stir you up and probably challenge you, and even spending alone time one-on-one with God, those things are going to cause you to grow in that context. But you got to have the relational element of Christianity, because it's part of the package that God has given us, and resisting that instruction from God to connect with others is really quenching the Spirit, because the Spirit's work includes the admonishing of brothers and sisters, the encouragement that comes from them. Matt touched on serving them, being served by them. All this is part of the sanctification process, and so by sanctification we just mean our growth into looking more like Jesus. And last week we really talked about that connection, because, well, Jesus was connected. He had those 12. He had the larger crowds where He would pull people from the crowds and make that personal touch with them. And even Jesus was vulnerable with them, even though He had no sin. When He was heartbroken, His disciples knew, I am deeply troubled in my heart. He would share those things with them. And if Jesus can do it, man, we can do it too. It can be difficult, but it's important for our spiritual growth for sure.
Well, I think one of the problems that we have in the Lord's church, made up of people, and the statement that was made that I've been hurt by the people at the church. You know, it always hits me that the personal pronoun I is the biggest obstruction in me becoming Christ-like. And because when Christ was hurt by the people, His focus was not how it affected Him, but how He affected them. I mean, His whole mission was not about Him. Jesus needed nothing from us. There's nothing we could give Him. He is God in the flesh. You know, He was in the eternal realm. He was in the heavenly realm, in the realm that we can't see. So why did my Savior come to earth? We'll sing that. Why did He come to earth? He came to earth because of my needs. And if we are going to get past these problems that we have, the biggest problem I have is getting me out of the way and looking at everything coming through me instead of everything coming through Christ. I love to read and love to religious things, and this is Reformation. This is Reformation Sunday to a lot of the religious world, and so I heard a person talking about Martin Luther.
Oh yeah.
And they said,
Oh, wasn't he that guy that said, "Do not, no matter what, create a denomination with my name"?
yeah. But Luther took the focus off of self, and a lot of his stuff was pointing. You're looking at Christ, and the Scriptures actually takes the focus off of me and looking to Christ. So the development that we're talking about is me just taking Jesus as my model and reforming myself and molding myself in the attitudes of Jesus himself. And I think too many times, all the problems, James talks about it, where do these quarrels and fightings come from? They come from within you. And so I have to look within me to let the Lord live within me.
Yeah, and I've heard people with fair criticism say, I have been hurt by the church. And I say, a lot of us have, but that doesn't stop you from loving those people and continuing to put yourself out there and to be vulnerable, to build walls. Those things really, it is the natural inclination to build those walls, but it really, in the long run, doesn't help us. And eventually, you can get into a state of isolation where no one can help you because nobody even knows who you are anymore. And that's not a good place to be spiritually. But yeah, so connection's really important, I think.
Yeah, it is, and I really hope that we can develop here. That's our goal here, is to try to help people create this has been the whole year, a place to heal.
That's right.
We want this to be a place where you can connect. We want this to be a place where you can share. Here in a little bit in our Bible class, we have a powerful story. By a person that found us through the live stream, is now a part of this family, and to hear the story that she's going to bring is it's amazing. All of you who'll be part of that later today, you'll get to see that. But people are out. We hear there's on one side of it, like I mentioned a moment ago, you have a lot of people out there that are it's the trendy thing to bash a church, but simultaneous to that, you have so many people desperate for a connection. And we have all these ways to connect with people. We're doing it right now through technology that 10 years ago would have been impossible to do. And we are connected more than at any time in the history of the planet. But yet more and more Americans are lonely and isolated. And we want you to know that if you're looking to get out of that, this is a place to heal. And look, there are people here watching this morning from across the country who have been through traumatic events over the last year. I know one person in particular, we've actually reached out to try to serve and help as we can, even from this long distance, because we believe in the mission. The mission of the church is to serve and to touch hearts and to make a difference. And it's not only through the connection of the church, but as we're going to move forward into this even more this morning, one of the other measuring sticks of my life needs to be, how concerned am I with regard to reaching others for the Lord? I think that is something that is so important, that how many people are we talking to? Listen, this should be something that is a natural reflection of the relationship I have with Christ. And we're going to talk more about that as we go in through the rest of the program today.
I'll never forget being totally amazed as a young new convert and attending a church where we had kind of separated off into our classes, and the leader of that high school class looked over the group of about, I'd say, 12 to maybe all the way up to 20. I'm not sure how many it was anymore, but high schoolers, right, all the way up to maybe like early college student age kids. And he had asked each of those young people who were kind of wet behind the ears themselves spiritually, hey, who are you talking to right now? And I was kind of taken aback because I'm like, wow, that's a lot of accountability, And each person had an answer for that question. oh, I'm working on this person. And even if they didn't know a specific person, they said, hey, I just got a new job. I'm trying to find who there wants to know the gospel. And I look back now, and when I was there, that church was about 150, and now it's about 350, because that generation has taken the mantle and they've gone forward with that culture in that place. And so I think that's where we see the Jesus-style kingdom growth, is when everybody's on board and everyone is actively pursuing evangelism. The idea of pursuing people who are lost, fallen, or drifting is just as much a command as assembling on a Sunday morning. And just like having connections with brothers and sisters, our spiritual life, if we choose to resist that leading of the Spirit, then we're going to be seriously spiritually immature when it comes to talking with people who don't see everything the way that we see it. Because we need that sharpening effect of, hey, I'm sharing this with you, what do you think? And hearing them, absorbing and understanding where they're coming from, that's only developed really in evangelism. I mean, in a church where we all agree, that's good to develop those relationships, but you need to be out there with your Muslim neighbor, your Hindu neighbor, your Jewish neighbor, every other faith that's out there, all of our religious neighbors, and sharing your conclusions about Jesus with them intentionally and in relationships. That's huge.
I think one of the things, people get scared to death of the term evangelism. Because if they think about people standing on the street corners and waving their hands and saying, if you don't know Jesus Christ, evangelism is many different things. You're sending out a message. You're a messenger. And Jesus defines evangelism pretty good in the Sermon on the Mount when he makes this statement, so let your light shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. You may not be able, and we have to recognize 1 Corinthians chapter 12 talks about the different talents that's in the body of Christ.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll just tell every Christian this. You can evangelize with the limited talent you have just by living a life that glorifies your Father which is in heaven, and letting people know that you're a Christian by the things you say, the way you act, the way you treat other people.
Absolutely.
And I think when we say evangelism, we're thinking this active role of going up and knocking on somebody's door or grabbing somebody on the street and saying, do you know Jesus Christ?
The megaphone, right?
Yeah, the megaphone. Well, sure, that could be one way of evangelism, not very effective. But evangelism is you living your life, just like Jesus said, somebody doesn't take a lamp and put it under a bushel, but they lay it out in the middle of the room so that it illuminates everything it comes in contact with. And the first key to evangelism is it's not an action, it's a way of life. It's who I am and what I do and the way that I live my life before men, that they might see those attitudes and glorify and wonder, man, this person is different. This person is not like the world that I'm in. This person shows something. Why are you the way that you are? And I think we really need just common Christians to be exceptional lights by just living it. You don't have to be standing on a street corner, but you need to live it so that people can see the light of Christ and the light of God in your life.
That's right.
Well, it really comes down to being intentional about this. Making that decision that I'm going to let my light shine, and I want to go back to this a moment ago. It's intentional, but it should be natural. We've been talking throughout the month of October about perspective, praise, and proclamation. And when you get that new spiritual perspective that God has given you, you've been recreated. Your life is new. If anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation, 2 Corinthians 5:17. When you get that, you understand and you start living life from that spiritual perspective, and heaven is your goal, Jesus is who your eyes are fixed upon, then proclamation is natural. It just flows. It comes right out of your heart, and it leads to praise. And so, how do I live this out? Well, I do this by building relationships with people. I think where was it? I think it was Jay that somebody just wrote in, or I saw it somewhere. It's Michael. Said that a lot of times people just associate evangelism with street preaching. And I can tell you one of the most ineffective methods of evangelism is street preaching. And it usually turns people off more than it has ever attracted anyone to the Lord. It is not that. Most of what when we're talking about sharing Jesus, it is not anything like that. It's not even mostly about knocking on doors. It is intentional relationships with people that need the Lord. They're hurting. They're going through a difficult life, and we lead them toward Jesus. We point the way toward Jesus. That's the idea, and you have to use judgment on how fast you go with that. But the idea is there's a general direction where things turn toward Him.
Yeah, I recently saw a TikTok video. I personally don't really use the app that much, but it was copied onto Facebook. And so I saw the TikTok, and it was of this woman, and she goes to these two people who we would say they're Gentiles. They have nothing to do with Jesus, and they're kind of sitting there talking, and they're recording this woman because she's just come up and started speaking to them. And I want to commend the woman first because she had the bravery to come up to these complete strangers, and her intention was correct. I would disagree with the methodology along the lines of what Matt said, because her view was this is a drive-by evangelism. I'm going to come by. She sits down. She says, "Hey, she says, "Hey, are you guys?" And they seem to be in a same-sex relationship. She says, "Are you guys? Well, if you do that, you're going to go to hell, right?" And they're like, "What?" And then she's like, "I hope you guys find Jesus. I just came by to tell you that." And she gets up and walks away. Well, a lot of good you did. At that point, it's like, no. The goal should be to try to relationally invest in these people. If they want to know more, where are you going to be? But it's easy for us to say, well, yeah, I'm anxious about it, but let me just drop this and then leave. Or, hey, let me pray for you, and then that's the end of it. But what would be better is if our intention is to invest in a long-term relationship where I'll walk with this person as far as they want to go to the point of becoming a mature disciple. And that starts with, hey, maybe it could be street preaching, right? Maybe there's a world where you begin and you're on the street and you're telling people about the grace and the justice of God. Most people who go out on street preaching are just talking about God's righteousness and condemnation. But if you go out there and you do that, and then your intention is, hey, could I get your contact? I'd love to talk with you more about some of the things I just shared with you today. Then that becomes a much more effective practice. The same thing goes with door knocking or the prayer evangelism or sharing your story with people. You want to have the intention to, hey, I would love for you to meet with us. We meet at this coffee shop. We meet in our church building at this time. We do this. Just wherever your church is gathering, to pull that person into those deeper relational contexts is really huge. That's what Jesus did, right? He called and gathered.
Let me clarify something on the street preaching thing. I have done it.
Oh, yeah.
I've been a part of it.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Now, in Colombia, okay?
Might be different there.
It's a whole different culture. I mean, Jaime Restrepo and myself and Carlos Julio Ramirez and a couple other guys, we stood out on the street in Algarabal, Colombia, and within about 20 minutes, we had 100 people standing there on the street corner. And the difference there is people are willing to listen, and we were also very conscious in the message that we were delivering. And then a few days later, we were in a different village in the same country, and you had to understand where we were. We're in a flood-prone area. We had a monsoonal, literal tropical storm rain that day. The building was in a flood zone, and it was so hot and so humid, so everybody said, let's meet outside. So the church met outside in the street, and the same thing happened. Within 30 minutes, we had 150 people gathered around out on the street. It was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen, and they got some Bible studies out of that. Cultural expectations drive that. So I'm not coming out against street preaching in general.
Yes.
And I think we've already touched on it here a little bit. What we see in the United States, and plus the fact I think most Americans, because of what we have described, are basically trained to just be skeptical, cynical, and ready to reject.
Even professing Christians see these
Yeah.
street preachers out here, and we go, this guy, you know.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the cultural expectation there. I think you're right, Matt, and I think that's kind of something that we deal with. I deal with no matter what kind of evangelism you try to do in America, because people think they have Jesus totally figured out, but when they actually start encountering Jesus in real relationships, it can really rock the house a little bit.
Well, my disappointment in life is not the times that I was able to preach the gospel. My disappointment in life is the times that I didn't preach the gospel in the right locations. There's times I didn't preach the gospel in my home. There's times I didn't preach the gospel in my relationship with my wife. There's times I didn't proclaim the gospel in my relationship to co-workers. There's times I didn't proclaim the gospel even amongst my brethren. That I think the point I'm trying to get across is we confine evangelism to speaking out to people that don't know the gospel. The statistic I heard yesterday is in our lifetime, the average person will meet 80,000 people. Now I want you to think about the world you're in, it's 4 billion. You're going to meet 80,000 people. And I got to tell you, you're not going to get close to most of those 80,000 people, but you may leave an impact on some of them.
Maybe 12, 3.
I don't know, but the point is, let's not lose the evangelism and looking outward to understand there's evangelism in our home and in our relationships and with our brethren and with the people that we do have common relationships with, and that is seen. That I think it's so important to understand evangelism from the standpoint that nobody's going to listen to what I say, but they're going to see what I do.
Yeah.
And evangelism starts with my character. And when my character is bad, it doesn't matter what I say. I can't be a light for the Lord just every once in a while. And the greatest failures of my life is when I didn't proclaim the gospel in the way that I live. First thing we got to get Christians to do is understand how serious this is, that your light so shine before all men, whether it's your family, whether it's the people you work with, whether it's the waitress at the restaurant, whether it's the person in line at the grocery store, whether it's the person you're driving behind that's driving you crazy. My light needs to show the gospel. And I rue the failures more than I celebrate the successes, because the failures are the ones that you remember. And you will always remember if you don't put Christ in your heart and if you don't become the gospel message in the way that we live our lives. And so I would tell you, evangelism starts with the heart of me being an example of the gospel so that others might see who God is through me. That is a challenge.
Right.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, Russ, you leave a great comment, brother. He says, the Acts 2 church is a great example. 3,000 just been baptized. They were meeting daily from house to house. So there's your connection aspect we talked about a little bit this week and last week. They were in awe of what was happening all around them in their newfound faith. They had favor with all the people. He says, what happened as a result? The Lord added to the church daily those who were being saved. That's right, Russ. When people understand who Jesus is, really and truly, evangelism is the natural result of that. To stop it, you have to artificially pull them back from it, or squelch that, or discourage them. Naturally, when you read the book of Acts, it encourages you to begin to live an outwardly facing faith, where, yes, even the people in your life that already know Christ, you're trying to help them get to heaven too. So I think, kind of as this would be my closing comments, but how do I know I'm winning, if we're using a scorecard mentality here? How do I know I'm doing well in my spiritual growth in this area? And Mr. Jim said it, Matt said it, I'll say it too. Sometimes we aren't always doing all we can, and that's okay, but we need to shore it up. How do we know we're winning in the evangelism category? Well, we're seeking people with the intentionality to bring salvation to those people. That means I shouldn't have some generic, somebody. We should be able to eventually map out the people in our life who are on our radar. I'm working with this person. I'm really trying to help this person. This person's fallen away. I'm really investing in that relationship. That person doesn't know Jesus. We are intentionally investing in relationships with evangelistic purpose, and we can answer the question that guy asked in that class with those high schoolers. When somebody looks at me, and if they want to hold me accountable and say, hey, how's your life going evangelistically? We should be able to detail, at least to say, hey, there's a few people I'd appreciate your prayers with because they're in my mind and in my heart. And that's important for us to do as Christians. Every member, a minister, every member, a priest, we are here to bring the gospel forward. And when we do that, we'll see Acts 2 things happen.
Yeah, that's right. And one of the greatest things that I'm seeing will bring us home, bring us back to here. There are people here, members here, that are actively working to share the gospel, to bring others to the Lord.
No doubt.
Some of that 35 people a week that we were talking about are people that members here have invited to come and be a part of this and worship with us every week. We're seeing that all the time. There's power in invitation to have people come and experience what it means to worship God, experience His family. There's power in that, and it's probably one of the easiest things a person could do is invite someone out to church.
Yeah, I just tell people it's pretty simple: inviting and investing.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, but
Pretty simple.
I have to ask you guys, maybe I'm different in this way. Every person I meet, whether it's out at the country club or whether it's when I was in business, I think about immediately their relationship with God.
Oh yeah.
Is that I'm just wondering, is that an automatic process in your mind when you meet somebody about to think about their relationship with God? It is for me. When I meet somebody and I start up a conversation, that's in my head their relationship with God. So I would tell you, I believe there's a lot of people sitting in this congregation that when they meet people, they're thinking about that person's relationship with God. Mm-hmm. And I hope so. I hope that's the core of our heart when we meet somebody.
I know that many are.
Yeah. So the question is how do we take that core thought that we automatically think because we know how important salvation is and how important the work of the Lord is. The question is, how do we take it from that being a mental question to being able to express that question to the people that we meet? And that's a hard transition.
It can be.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a hard transition.
It goes from your mind, and then it sinks into your heart, and then I think it does kind of come out of your mouth and you're in your hands in the way you serve that person. And I think that's kind of what being a disciple is all about.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, guys, we're about 8:33, 8:34, so probably should wrap it up for the day.
I think you're right.
And we look forward to seeing all of you back here in a little over an hour for our Bible class. Kane and I will be back for that. And then, of course, at 10:45, we'll have our worship service today. And we really, again, we want to encourage you, if you live here in southwestern Ohio, come out and be a part of us today. You'll be glad you did. 5051 Wilmington Pike. You can check us out more on the web at cornerstone-coc.com and get to know us there as well. But thank you for being a part of your Pathway Home this morning. Kane and Jim will be back next week. I'll be out of town next week in a meeting over in Eastern Ohio. So these two will handle things next week, and I will see you in 2 weeks. But guys, thank you.
Thank you.
And we will see you next week. God bless.
Only you can give to me. song, my humble plea. I am your child, I am in need of grace, in need of love, in need of mercy raining down from high above, in need of strength, in need of peace, in need of things that only you can give to me, in need of Christ, the perfect Lamb, my refuge strong, the great I am. This is my song, my humble plea. I am your child, I am in need of Christ, the perfect Lamb, my refuge strong, the great I am. This is my song, my humble plea. I am your child, I am in need. I am your child, I am in need. Humble yourself in the sight of the Lord.
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 And He will lift you up. And He will lift you up. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound
That saved a wretch like me. That saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found.
I once was lost, but now I'm found.
I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Was blind, but now I see. When we've been there 10,000 years.
10,000 years.
When we've been there 10,000 years.
10,000 years.
Bright shining as the sun. Bright shining as the sun. We've no less days to sing God's praise.